to cheat, at least be smart. I mean, if you're going to embezzle, be smart about it. If you're going to try to steal from the government, don't be stupid. Okay, so I'm just going to throw this out there. How many of you finished this? Okay, finished. It's yes or no. It's like pregnant. You either are or you're not. You either got to the last page or you didn't. Almost. We used to joke with one of our kids, because he'd say, "Yeah, I read that book." Or which one was it? No, it was my eldest son. We're like, "Get out of here! You did not finish that already. You're skipping pages. You're like reading every other page because you can do that in a novel, and you'll get most of it. You might miss some important stuff." And he used to swear that he wasn't doing it. Okay, so it looked like about 3 of you finished it. 4 of you maybe. Okay. And some of you tried. How far, for those of you who tried, how far did you get? You got Haley, you're telling me you got that far, right? Not this far. Okay. How many of you got over halfway? Okay, then I can go ahead and because what I'm going to do is a little different than what I usually do. I'm going to ask a lot of questions, okay? And we're going to talk about the end as well as the beginning. So for those of you who aren't finished yet, I'm going to give a little away. I'm going to give a lot away. I'm going to give the entire conclusion away to this one, okay? But I won't. I'll try not to say anything about the other 2, the next 2. Okay? Pardon?
I was about to say you're dabbling in the next one a little bit.
Well, we hear her name in this one.
Yeah.
Not much. We hear her name.
From the alley.
I'm trying to remember
The resist.
Stanley. Stanley's one.
That's the 30-year-old girl from the alley.
Yes.
No.
She is named at one point.
I didn't remember.
I didn't hear. Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah, she's. We see her twice.
Yeah.
We see her once with Bartimaeus. We see her the other time, and the other guy names her. Okay. Kitty, Stanley, Fred. Thank you. Because Fred and Stanley are the ones who like to gut people.
Okay.
All right, so we've got to start with kind of premises, foundational material, right? Assuming we lived in London and not in Murfreesboro, which would be really nice. I've been to London lots of times. It's my favorite place in the world. Assuming we lived in London and not in Murfreesboro, this would not be the London we could visit today, right? Why? What would be different about it? Magicians, thank you. And?
Structures that no longer exist.
But like what?
I've never been to London.
Okay, no, the structures are pretty much the same. I started looking at it because I'd never done this before. I've been teaching this for, I don't know, this one, at least 5 years. I think it's probably closer to 10.
Transitioning demons.
Louder?
They're transitioning demons.
Transitioning demons, okay. Or demons that are talked about, that are used for powers. That's pretty big difference. What's the social structure of society like? I've run out of board.
Is it kind of like it's not quite a democracy.
That was like 1984-ish.
Magicians at top. Okay, so who's at the bottom? Commoners.
Is it commoners or would it be the demons?
No, it's commoners.
Okay.
Where would demons be in here?
Definitely.
They're not included, right?
No.
Because this is human.
Yeah.
Demons are inhuman, unhuman. Do they like being called demons?
No. They're spirits.
But they're not spirits either. That's why I've got spirits in quotation marks. I didn't really know what to call them. I don't want to call them demons because they don't like that. I'm assuming for the moment they were real. Just set it over there. Okay? So, magicians at the top, commoners at the bottom. How did the magicians get at the top? Or why aren't the commoners at the top? Power. What kind of power?
Money.
magical.
Magical.
Yeah, they control the demons. How do they control demons and not commoners?
Because commoners don't have the magic.
Knowledge.
What do you mean they don't have the magic?
They don't have the money and knowledge to be able to.
Why don't they have the knowledge?
It's restricted from.
They weren't given up as kids to become apprentices.
Okay, that's all part of the social structure, right? Magicians, how do they become magicians? Notice it's not like, if you've read the Harry Potter novels, it's not like in the Harry Potter world, where you are born magical.
They take I'm trying to think of the word. They overcome other people.
Their parents don't, the Nathaniel, for example, as a young baby, or as a 5-year-old, he wasn't taken from his parents, right?
He was sold.
They sold him.
Yeah.
Okay? They got money out of this deal. Okay? And then what happened to him? Who did he get sold to? Pick a
The
name.
Underwoods, Arthur and
Arthur Underwood. Describe
He
Arthur Underwood.
wasn't sold to them. He was sold to the government and then given to Underwood. Underwood was not paid to take him, was he?
He ain't
Yeah, it was more.
Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
yes, literally that's true. Literally that's true. But he goes to Arthur Underwood. Okay? Describe Underwood.
Yeah.
I won't repeat that. But, okay?
A mediocre magician.
A mediocre magician.
Not a true one. He's one of those ones that, look, I can't think of the actual quote from Bartimaeus, but he was ones that's trying to be a true magician with the beard and the hair and the drapes, while true magicians had the suits.
He seems like a loner. Other than
He is a true magician. He controls spirits. He's a government official. He's not a high-ranking government official, but he's a government official. Okay? Yes.
Are all magicians government officials, or?
Kind of sounds like it, doesn't it?
I think so. I was.
With some exceptions. Sholto Penn. He's not in the government. What's he do?
He's a shaman.
He sells magical stuff. Okay? So,
He's quite cool.
magicians, and they're still magicians, so you could say magicians, government at the top, and then,
Society.
no, not society wouldn't be the
People
right
that
word.
support them.
Entrepreneurs.
Wait,
Yeah,
because
we
the
got
government
this
has to get
stupid-
the resources from somewhere.
I got this stupid flyer out here about the World Socialist Society or whatever, okay? Entrepreneurs, according to socialists, bad bullshit. Entrepreneurs haven't killed 100 million people in the last 100 years, like socialism has. Don't get into it. Entrepreneurs, like Sholto Penn, are there entrepreneurs who aren't magicians?
Who aren't magicians?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, there are. Okay? We don't meet them in this book. I'm not giving away anything. We're going to meet a character next book. We're going to meet a character in the next book whose father produces books, but he's a commoner. Okay, he's way down low in the level. Who gets to buy books? Not commoners. Magicians do. Okay, so he produces the things that the magicians use to become magicians, magical texts. Right? So we're gonna see that as the novels go on. Yes.
So what about Miss Lutyens? What would she fall under? Entrepreneur?
What's Mrs. Lutyens? She's a commoner.
She's an artist.
She's an art teacher, but an artist also. Mr. Purcell is also a commoner. He's his history teacher. Okay, we meet both of them. In fact, we're going to see something happen to both of them. She's going to come back.
I like her.
She's going to show up in later novels.
Yay.
Maybe they'll kill that dude off.
Maybe they'll kill which dude off?
His history, his teacher,
Hmm.
history teacher, please.
Um,
I hate him.
I'm just trying to.
Trying to filter.
No, I don't think he gets killed off. He's just not mentioned later. He kind of disappears.
Cool.
Which, speaking about socialism, Could mean he's killed off. He becomes among the disappeared. Okay? So, that's our general background. How long, I can't ask that question. Rats. Because you don't know until the third book. Magicians, I'll go ahead and say this without giving you the context. So, magicians have been in power in Britain for a little over 100 years at the time that this story takes place. Before they were in power, commoners were in power. Before commoners were in power, magicians were in power. And you keep going backwards. Actually, it is alluded to it here. In some of Bartimaeus' teaching of Nathaniel. Okay. Describe Bartimaeus. I have no idea if this is what he really looks like. It's a great image of him. Okay. He takes on quite a few different forms in the course of all three novels. The most frequent one that he uses is the one that we see him mention early on. No, the young boy, the young Egyptian boy, okay, who's going to be named later on a real person in our world, a real person.
He said he loved
Yes.
the boy. He did.
He did. Yeah, he is mentioned here. Okay, so describe Bartimaeus.
Cynical.
Cynical. Cunning.
Opportunistic.
I like all those. Where is he? Cynical. Cunning. Cynical. Now, hold on. What do you mean by cynical? Because we might have different understandings.
Like, I was thinking of his kind of outlook on the world, humans, humanity, like all together.
Okay.
Really, like if you just read all of his footnotes, it's kind of.
Okay, let's play. This is really dangerous, but I'm gonna do it. I don't mean to offend anybody. Okay, take me seriously. Let's imagine for a moment we're not living in 2019 Tennessee. We're living in 1849 Tennessee or 1859 Tennessee. I bet, and I'm not, I don't want to single anybody out by name. But I bet a couple of you in this class would be a little cynical towards the rest of us. Why?
Well, okay, that's fair. I wouldn't even be here to be so.
Slavery, right?
Yeah.
He's a slave. What kind of slave? His form of slavery, I would argue, was a hell of a lot worse than any human kind of slavery. For a couple of reasons.
It's immortal.
How old is he?
Oh,
We're told.
Oh, yeah.
He's 5,000 years old.
He's been doing this a while.
And for that 5,000 years, most of it has been spent here. Because some damn fool finds his name in a book and conjures him.
And it rips him from his world. It doesn't pluck him.
Yeah, it rips him from his world and does what else? Okay, Africans were ripped from Africa, okay, and brought over. So that's about the same. What's the huge difference? He has to take a shape. At least they got to keep their bodies, when the Africans were brought over. And they weren't, automatically legs taken off or arm or whatever, because you make them useless. He has to take a form, which for him means what? Pain. Just automatic pain. Okay? So his entire existence here is full of pain. I like your definition. I think that would make him a bit cynical. Maybe cynical's not even hard enough. A bit jaded, a bit angry, a bit, if he ever can find a little flaw in the circle or in the pentagram, you're going to get, like you can never believe. Okay?
So
Cynical, cunning. Go ahead.
Cynical in a good way, I guess.
Yeah.
Realistically cynical, is that a thing?
Yeah, I think so. I would say that, most of the time I'm pretty cynical about The way our world has totally turned upside down just in the last 10 years. Okay? And I'm not talking politics. I'm talking the way people think, what the redefinitions of ideas and words and values, etc. It's like literally a totally different world from when I was you guys' age. I mean, I am so glad to be nearly 58 and not 20 right now. I would hate, I fear for my kids who are in their 20s and late teens. Okay? What else about Bartimaeus? Okay, so cynical and cunning, are those positive attributes? Are those things that make you want to be friends with Bartimaeus?
He's opportunistic.
Okay, yeah, he's opportunistic. You give him an inch, what? He's going to take that. In fact, he's probably going to take more than a mile.
Yeah.
That's why I said, if you don't draw that circle perfectly, it's just an accident. That one ended up pretty good. They didn't do this. You're dead. Yeah, he will take that opportunity. Okay? What else? He's pretty damn funny, isn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I first read this, there were times I was laughing out loud because, he was so funny. The author, Jonathan Stroud, has written a couple of other series. One of them is called the Lockwood. I can't remember the rest of it. The Lockwood series. And there are, how many are there now? 6. Also set in London. He's a British writer, obviously. That have some parallels to this world. Okay? Not our world, but the Bartimaeus world. It's just that there aren't demons. Demons aren't the problem. Ghosts are the problem. So if you're into ghost stories, you got to pick up the Lockwood books because they're fantastic. Okay. Let's skip those others for now. Go to the beginning. So, chapter 1, we see Bartimaeus get summoned by this kid. Do we know the kid's name? No, we don't.
We don't at the beginning.
We don't at the beginning. Why?
Because Bartimaeus doesn't know it.
Why?
If he knew it, then he would have made that boy's life a lot more.
Exactly. You never give out your birth name, which is why those children, when they get quote-unquote adopted by magicians, what happens to the name they had?
Never forget him.
It's forgotten. It's not like, Men in Black, erased. They're supposed to forget it. I don't know about you. If you're called something for 5 years, it's going to be hard to forget that. Okay? So, he's summoned, and we're told, Bartimaeus tries to scare the kid. Page 5. The kid spoke very squeakily. Hey, George, get on with it, And so he talks to him a bit, tells him, and says, I know who you are. You were, at the walls of Prague and stuff, and we'll see the city of Prague and all that kind of stuff. And Bartimaeus, page 7, says, you know what you're asking for, boy? And he spits out a rule. I am neither to converse, discuss, nor parley with you, nor to engage in any riddles, bets, or games of chance, nor to... Now, shut up. He's read that somewhere and memorized it. Okay? So, he gets the charge. He's sent away, page 8. The second dismissal. My bowels felt as if they were being passed over by a steamroller. Squished. I sensed my form waver, flicker. There was power in this child, though he was very young. Okay? So, that tells us something. Tells us something that doesn't really get explained in any of the other novels, or even in this one. He tells us there's power in him, not in what he knows. Because in the other books, in the rest of this book, and in the other books, it's kind of implied that power comes from where? Well, take that back. It's not implied. Where does the power first and foremost come from?
No. Books.
The demons. Yes, you have to have the knowledge that's in the books in order to summon the demons, especially when you get higher. Okay. But what else does it take to, for example, control and they're pronounced afrits, to control an afrit or a merit?
Energy.
It takes internal power. Okay? We're being told here, how old is he at this point? He's like 8, if I remember correctly. Okay? This first time. Very first time. And he's controlling, notice Bartimaeus, he's in this class, so he's kind of in the middle, but in each of these there are ranks, hierarchies within each. He's like a 13th level. He's up there. He's, closer to an afrit than he is to a foliot. All right? So we see Bartimaeus, and he goes off and does what he's been charged to do. What's he been charged to do? Steal the amulet of Samarkand. And you got a little picture of the amulet. Interestingly enough, in the 1950s, and the 1950s are referred to in here, in the 1950s, there was an amulet, like gem, metal piece of jewelry, discovered in, I never wrote it down, in where? Somewhere like Kazakhstan or Armenia, somewhere along the Silk Road, from southern Mediterranean over to China, all right? But it was on the western side of the Silk Road. It wasn't in the China-Mongolia side, okay? There was this thing discovered that dated to approximately 3,000, 3,500 BC. And the archaeologists who discovered it and those who examined it pretty much all universally concluded it was a amulet, some kind of talisman, something that the person or persons who created it and used it thought it was something that could control or have power. Okay? Well, here we have an amulet of Samarkand. So, he goes to Simon Lovelace's house, and he looks at it. He goes inside, pages 18 and 19. 18 is where he tells us about the boy whose form he took, someone he had known and loved. Now this is important because we don't know fully yet, we've not been told everything about how much demons hate their masters because they're slaves to them. Okay? And let me modify that. Though there are many who become very inured to their fate. That is, they learn to accept the position they're in. And because they learn to accept the position they're in, their masters start to treat them more kindly, more fairly, etc. For example, Sholto Pen treats his djinn who helps run the store, essentially, very well. Treats him so well, in fact, that he kind of almost forgets that he's a djinn. Okay? So, Jabor and Farquhar don't fit those categories. If Simon Lovelace were to make a mistake, he'd be toast. Literally. I mean, they gobble him up in a second. Okay? So, 18 and 19, we're told, some of the stuff he sees, and we're specifically told, page 19, there's a summoning horn. Well, if you finish the book, that comes up. Okay? Same paragraph in the middle, there's an eye made of clay. I'd seen one of those before in the head of a golem. There's the second book called The Golem's Eye. Okay. Golems aren't something that Jonathan Stroud creates. They are figures of Jewish mythology, inanimate men, that is, inanimate, unalive human bodies made of clay, essentially, that can be controlled. It's probably where J.R.R. Tolkien gets the name Gollum from. Okay? What else is there? There's the Amulet of Samarkand. Okay? And he talks about the different planes. Notice there are 7 planes of existence. First plane, that's where we are. What do we see? We non-magical humans. We see only on the first plane. We don't see anything else. Okay? So, talks about it being found in the 50s and such. He gets it, he starts to leave, and he runs into the cook, who turns out is an old friend. Not really a friend, but an old acquaintance, let's say. They've battled before, okay? Going back thousands of years. So, I'm going to skip a bunch. He gets away from Faquarl and Jabor, and I want to pick up with... Actually, he doesn't get away. We're just going to pick up with... Where is it? Chapter 5. Yeah, he does get away. Chapter 5. Notice what he does in the chapters. You have a name at the beginning of the chapter. That tells you it's about that individual. We're going to reach a point where we're going to get breaks in the chapters where we will shift perspective within the chapter. And in the next book, in the following book, those breaks will bring in names of other people. For example, Kitty will show up. Okay? So, chapter 5. Nathaniel, where are we and when are we?
Well, in Underwood's.
We're in Underwood's house. We're in his study. Above all, said his master, there is one fact that we must drive into your wretched little skull now so that you never forget afterwards. Can you get? No, I don't know. So he says, remember this. Demons are very wicked. They will hurt you if they can. Do you understand? Yes. Okay. Notice, do we know how old the boy is at this point? No, we don't. Okay. The boy at this point, that is in chapter 5, is younger than he was in the previous chapters. Okay? So one of the things, not Lockwood, Stroud is doing is he's shifting time on us. We're going back and forth in time. This is not a straight what's called chronological novel. It doesn't start at the beginning, move to the end. Okay? So, what's the point of this chapter? It's short, and it's got a short point. Demons are what? They're evil. How do we know?
Because we're told.
Okay. How many of you have read the Harry Potter novels? Not very many. Some of you have. In the Harry Potter novels, we often see the new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. There's a new one every year. We see that new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher do a practical lesson. Some of you might be majors where you've got, your classes, and then where you will have to do a practicum at some point. You've got to go do an internship in a business. Student teachers have to go show up in a classroom and face the demons, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Taught 7th grade for 1 year. 2 classes in 7th grade for 1 year. I'd rather slit my wrist to ever do that again. So, how do we see, experience demons are evil? What does Underwood do to the boy?
Well, I see them in his study with all the imps and
He says, go into my study, go to my desk. On my desk, there's a box. Open the box. In the box, there's a pair of glasses. Bring those to me. So he goes, opens the door, walks down the length of his study, and the implication is it's a big room. Walks down there, and as he gets close to the desk, he hears something. He turns around, there's nothing there. He gets to the desk, there's a pen lying on the desk, and it does that all on its own. He's kind of like, He hears other noises. Several pins roll off the desk on their own. At that point, he's grabbed the glasses. What does he do? What any smart person would do. He turns and runs. He gets to the door is slammed closed, and he puts the glasses on. And what's he see?
A room full of, he said,
A room full of these imps. And what are they doing? They're attacking him. Okay?
I love how they only attack after they know that he can see them.
Why? Not why do you like that? Why do they do that?
I'm sure that was the charge.
Okay, could be. Why else?
Fun if he can't react. I mean,
Where is it that Lewis writes about this? C.S. Lewis, Screwtape Letters. C.S. Lewis in Screwtape Letters writes about this same kind of thing. Ooh, I never thought about that before. Writes about that same kind of thing. Screwtape Letters are letters written by a senior demon to a junior demon. Okay, imagining demons are real. Okay, a senior who is the uncle of the junior demon. So demons have, familial relationships, so to speak. And he's writing to him because the junior demon has a new charge. That is, a new human he's supposed to seduce into hell, to pull away from heaven, so to speak. And he has one passage in there where he essentially says, as long as we can keep them thinking that we're not real, that we don't exist, that they don't see us, that's fine. Okay? That is, they won't have any problems with our influencing things. It's all behind the scenes. He says, but when we come out, when they see us for what we are, it scares the heebie-jeebies out of them, essentially. Well, this happens to Nathaniel, and what are we told? Page 34. The boy was still there 20 minutes later. Okay, still there means what? Huddled, crouched up against the door. Underwood allows this to happen, to go on for 20 minutes. Why?
Experience. Portrait.
Okay.
Keep careful.
Haley?
he's rude.
He's rude. Okay, you're so polite. That's a good way of putting it. Because he's a sick SOB.
he's sick.
It's
like,
sadistic, right?
He can't learn it. He's 6. Like, what could he learn from this besides?
What could he learn from
learned
this?
plenty.
Like
demons are-
complete fear. Like that. Now it's
Bingo.
traumatized.
Bingo.
It's horrible.
That's what he learns. He learns the lesson. You don't trust demons.
I wouldn't trust him.
Well, that's kind of a little lesson I would probably learn too. Okay. In fact, we're told he's so traumatized that what? He was carried to his room for a day and night. He did not eat. For a further week, he remained mute and unresponsive. That doesn't mean he doesn't speak at all. It might mean only that. I take unresponsive to mean like medically unresponsive, catatonic shock, other than he does eat. Okay? Finally, he regains his speech and was able to resume his studies. Okay? So, this was one of Nathaniel's earliest experiences. That is, this is one of the things he remembers from his youth. He doesn't remember much else. He didn't speak of it to anyone. And then we're told he was 6. 6. Like kindergarten. Okay? Meanwhile, back to Bartimaeus. So we jump backwards in time. Now we're jumping back to the present, so to speak. Okay? So we're going to skip a bunch. Bartimaeus gets caught by some street kids. Pages, not quite 44, 45 and following. Bartimaeus thinks they don't see him, safe behind his barrier. I waited for them to go past. Girl was in the lead. She drew level with me. He says, safe behind my barrier. I yawned. And then she says, it's there. Or one of the boys says, it's there. Get it. And they leap over the door into the doorway. They crash down on him, etc., etc. So Bartimaeus is kind of sitting there going, what gives? How come they can see me? Because notice what they are not wearing. They don't have the magician's glasses on.
Or the lenses.
Yeah. For the lenses. Okay? So they don't wear, but they can see. So they talk. Or Bartimaeus talks with them. And the girl doesn't pay really any attention to his threats. Page 47. Don't give me your weasel words, demon. I won't be tempted. Surely you do not want my enmity. My friendship is greatly to be preferred. I don't care about either. I want whatever it is you have around your neck. So she sees him, and she sees or senses the thing he's wearing. Okay? So he's able to throw them off. Pick up with chapter 8. We're going to go through quickly. So now, where are we? Yeah, but where?
At the beginning, right when he
We go even before he was 6 years old, and we go to when he is being adopted by the Underwoods. Birth record's been removed, destroyed. That is, he has no birth certificate. They don't know who his birth parents are anymore. He's now officially unformed. He's a nobody. You can start with him from scratch. Okay? And what's he doing? He's over there hiding and crying. His parents have what?
Soul.
He doesn't understand the soul part, right? He thinks abandoned. He's been abandoned. Okay? I'm Underwood, your master. Your true life begins now. Come with me. Kid cries. Okay? Mrs. Underwood, helps him. They take him home. She says, this is so wrong. Why can't magicians have their own children? He should be allowed to stay with his family, or at least to see them. Underwood says, 54. You know very well it's quite impossible. His birthday must be forgotten. How can it be forgotten? No one has forced his parents to part with their brat, etc., etc. Underwood says, it didn't do me any harm. That is, that happened to me. Notice, Martha's not a magician. She just married one. Did it do any harm to Underwood? I don't know. I'd kind of say he's a little bit scarred myself. It would be a lot less cruel if magicians were allowed their own children. That road leads to competing dynasties, family alliances. Bush, Clinton, Bush, Kennedy. A lot of people fear Trump. Bush. Because, the Bush clans, they got so many grandkids. There's grandkids in their 20s and 30s now who are rising in various states, Texas and Florida, various political positions. You can bet in your lifetime, George P. Bush will either be running for Senate or running for vice president or president. I would put money on that bet. I just saw a thing today. Chelsea rising. Chelsea Clinton. Okay? So, he says, we don't want to have dynasties. Is that really the way to do away with dynasties? Because how else are dynasties built? Or can they be built? Dynasties don't have to be by blood. You can have a dynasty by having a hand-picked chosen successor. And that person having a hand-picked chosen successor, etc. Okay? So, she tells him you're going to be, page 56, a magician, greatest privilege any boy or girl could have. Your parents made the ultimate sacrifice. How do we use that phrase today? So-and-so paid the ultimate sacrifice. They died. They died. Okay? They didn't, they got paid. That wasn't a sacrifice. It was a transaction. Okay?
It was the ultimate transaction.
It was the ultimate transaction. Sell your child. Okay? So, we see Nathaniel with his history teacher. Page 59 and following. They're talking about government. Talking about government. What is the chief purpose of our noble government? To rule us? To protect us. What supposedly is the number one job of the chief executive of the United States? It's the defense of two things, the country and the Constitution. It's not social welfare. It's not making sure our roads are good. It's not making sure we have electricity. It's to protect and defend. Okay? He says to protect us. Do not forget our country is at war. Prague still commands the plains east of Bohemia. And, there's armies in Italy, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So he says, you are going to be a part of the government. You as a magician. Remember that, yes, sir. Honor is the most important quality for a magician. Honor. Now, this is going to be directly undercut by Arthur Underwood. And Simon Lovelace. And Schuyler. And Duval. And Devereaux. And Jessica Whitwell. And Schultopin. And quite a few others. Okay?
Easels.
Yeah. It's the most important quality for a magician. He or she has great power and must use it with discretion. You can play the Spider-Man quote, Uncle Ben. With great power comes great responsibility. In the past, rogue magicians have attempted to overthrow the state. They've always been defeated. Why? Because true magicians fight with truth and justice and virtue on their side. I threw in the truth part, I almost said American way. Are you a magician? No, Underwood. I was not selected. Not a chip on his shoulder. It's a big old boulder. Oh, so you're a commoner. Yes, he's a commoner. Okay? So, he keeps being taught. We hear about Purcell, and we hear about Ms. Luches. That's how her name is pronounced. Okay? Why does he have to take art lessons?
So you can draw pentacles.
And circles. Perfectly. These are drawn without a compass. Compass, it's easy to make a circle. Freehand circles, not that easy.
Dead.
That seems
Okay,
pretty
yeah.
good.
But yeah, it's all connected. There's nothing, But if I were to do this, then I can't do it upside down. Pentagram is an upside down star. I can't draw an upside down star. And we're to penetrate that line with the point, I'd be dead. Okay? So, he says it's only a small mistake, page 62. The rest's okay, isn't it? That's not the issue. If you were copying out a pentacle and you left a hole in it, what would happen? It would cost you your life. You don't want to die just yet, do you, Nathaniel? No. So, he knows his birth name. Martha Underwood knows his birth name. Ms. Luchins knows his birth name. Nobody is supposed to know his birth name. Okay? Skip a bit more. Chapter 9. Between the ages of 6 and 8, Nathaniel visited his master only once a week. That is for teaching. Okay? Why? These occasions on Friday afternoons were subjects of great ritual. After lunch, Nathaniel had to go upstairs, wash, change his shirt. 2:30, he presented himself at the door of his master's reading room on the first floor. Enter. Why all the formality? What is Underwood trying to... He's not trying to teach Nathaniel. He's trying to show what about himself?
Superior.
Yeah. There's an aura of mystery and power about him. Okay?
Always felt it was like that uncle that wasn't really that great, but made all the kids think he was like the best thing
I totally get that. That's crazy. I got an uncle like that.
I was going to say, okay, a little too much, personal information here, okay? Anyways, he goes on, and what does he say? He's teaching him about power. 64. A magician is a wielder of power. A magician exerts his will and affects change. Now, I'm pretty convinced that Jonathan Stroud read J.R.R. Tolkien's essay on fairy stories. Because in that essay, Tolkien says, he talks about the magician. And he says the magician wields power to do two things. To control things and wills. To have dominion over things and wills. Wingardium Leviosa, Harry Potter, and that would float. Wills, Imperio, and Haley would do whatever I told her to do. She would have no willpower anymore. Okay? That's just what he said. Exerts his will and effects change. Okay? He can do it from selfish motives or virtuous ones. Virtuous, well, that's kind of getting back to that idea of honor that good Mr. Purcell taught him. The results of his actions can be good or evil. But the only bad magician is an incompetent one. Notice, you're not a bad magician if you have bad or evil purposes. It's kind of like the end of the first Harry Potter novel. There is, where Quirrell says, my master taught me about ridiculous notions of good and evil. What are the ridiculous notions of good and evil? That there is good and evil. He says, there is no such thing as good and evil. There is only power, and those too weak to seek it. Okay? There is no good and evil. There's just power, raw power. And people are either too weak to seek it, or what's the reverse of that? Strong enough to seek it. The results of his actions can be good or evil. The only bad magician is an incompetent one. Because if you're incompetent, what do? Yeah. What is the definition of incompetence, boy? Loss of control. If you lose control of a demon, I don't know, let's replace demons with a nuclear warhead. That would be incompetent. If you lost control, shoot, where did I put that nuclear warhead? That would be, correct. Providing the magician remains in control of the forces he is set to work, he remains, what does he finish the sentence? The 3 S's, safe, secret, strong. And without giving too much away, should I go there? Huge foreshadowing for the end of book 3. Huge foreshadowing for the end of book 3. Okay? And to some extent, even this book. Because after all, jump to the end for a moment. What is that thing's name? Zamuthra or whatever it is. This thing higher than a merit that is summoned at the end of this book. It's really beyond anyone's control, right? Unless you have the amulet of Samarkand. And even then, it's a little dicey. All the amulet of Samarkand means is it can't harm you. It doesn't mean you have control over it. You have to have enough magical power to control it. It's more powerful than anything else in the room that it is summoned in at that point. Bartimaeus is not its equal. Bartimaeus is a bug compared to an elephant to this thing. Okay? So, safe, the 3 S's. Safe, secret, strong. What's the great secret? Spirits. Demons, boy. Call them what they are. What's the difference between spirits and demons?
One has like a negative connotation.
Yeah, in our world, demon always has that negative connotation. Was it this class or my other class? Can't remember. I was talking about, it was this class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In relation to, I already forgot his name. Karen. Man, that you have, depending on how you spell it, demons, daemons, another word that's used for them, genie, or this is the English spelling of that. Okay? These things that kind of tell us what we ought to do, ought to be in our lives and such. So if you walk up to somebody on the street and say, so what's your demon? They're probably going to smack you or, do the sign of the cross or something. Okay? Demons are very wicked. Will hurt you if they can. Good memory. What else? Demons are the great secret. Common people know of their existence, know that we can commune with them. That's why they fear us. But they do not realize the full truth. All of our power comes from them. Why don't they know the full truth?
Because they weren't given up as kids.
Okay. Why else?
And they did themselves.
If demons are the source of magicians' power, and the only reason magicians can control demons is because they have access to books, then what would commoners do if they knew that?
They would get access to books.
Give me the books. Ray Bradbury writes in Fahrenheit 451, a book is a loaded gun in your neighbor's hand. In the context of the novel Fahrenheit 451, where books are illegal, where books are outlawed, where books are burned. And nobody has books except for the outlaws. Why do they have books? Because they want to be different. Okay? It's one of the greatest things written against censorship of all kinds. Okay?
What's it called?
It's not taught much anymore. Probably because some of the language Bradbury uses would drive various groups completely up the wall because he doesn't pull any punches. He's got this one long passage where he uses all these hyphenated group names. African American, for example, or Haitian American, or Chinese American. This is written in 1950, and he's got Buddhist American and tree-hugging, rock-kissing, blah, 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 blah. And it's just like one hyphenation after another. Why? Because he saw in 1950 where we were already headed. And the thing is, he nailed it. He saw perfectly where all the censorship was going to come from, not the government. Where does it always start?
The people. Classroom.
Classrooms, the people. Censorship on college campuses. It's not starting from the administrations. It's starting from the students. I don't want to hear XYZ. Therefore, you, professors, can't talk about this topic. You can't say this word in class. Where was this? Oh, should I use this example? Is it relevant to this class? Everything's relevant to this class. Emory Law School. Professor was talking, if I remember, about free speech. And he used, in the context of the classroom, in the classroom lecture, he used the word nigger. And he had several students essentially object to it in class and speak to the dean, and they're literally trying to fire this guy because of using the word. Okay? I regularly teach William Faulkner's Barn Burning novel, short story, and it uses the word. Okay, I don't teach Mark Twain, but if I did teach Mark Twain, I would use the addition of Mark Twain that includes Mark Twain's words. Why? Because one of the things Twain is doing in Huck Finn, Tom Sawyer, is he's portraying America as it was at the time. What happens if we try to remove the way things were? I don't mean change our world for the better. I mean take something that happened in the past and say, this didn't happen.
People forget about it and tend to repeat the past. And
They do that anyway.
Where was it? Not Yale. Princeton has a school Who is the American president? Wilson, after Roosevelt, has the Wilson School of Government. Students protested. Why? Wilson was a nasty piece of work. Read a little bit about Wilson. You want to talk about a racist president? Wilson was dyed in the wool racist. When Wilson became president, he actually had the government, the entire federal government at the time, fire all blacks. He removed them from government. Okay? His father was a Virginia preacher. Okay, Virginia at the time, pretty big at the time, meaning the late 19th, early 20th century, big hotbed of the KKK. I'm not saying that his father was in the KKK, but his father held views that the KKK essentially supported. He was very racist. Okay? So, does that mean because Wilson was a nasty piece of work, he was also a university professor and president of Princeton before he became president of the United States, does that mean you remove his name? He was also a United States president for 2 terms. For good or ill, what happens when you start to erase history? Well, you do forget those lessons, and that then makes them what? Easier to fall back into the same mistakes. So, you learn the history, you remember the history. What do we say, after all, for example, about the Holocaust? Same 2 words you'll often see every 9/11. Never forget. Why? So it doesn't happen again. It is happening. It's happening right now. 1 million Muslims. And I'm an Orthodox Christian, or like Greek Russian Orthodox, okay? Me and Islam have very, very, very little in common. But there's 1 million Muslims in concentration camps in China as we speak. And the NBA gets upset because some guy says free Hong Kong. Okay. Talk about power imbalance. So, he talks about his memory. He says, you're good. And what happens? How does Nathaniel develop as student? He reads everything, right? This kid wants to learn. Why does he want to learn?
So he can faster.
What comes with learning in this world? Power. Power doesn't come with learning in this world, does it? In our world. Not as much. Okay? It comes a lot more from connections than it does from learning. I wouldn't want teachers really. No, that'd be scary. So he tells him, pages 66 and following, here's your reading material for the next 3 years. And he points to a bookcase. Just that. And what does Nathaniel do? What about those books over there? No, those are way too advanced for you. Until we see what? Within those 3 years, he not only reads that, he reads all of that as well. And he doesn't just read it.
He studies it.
He learns it. He memorizes it. Okay? Essentially. So, let's see here. They talk about the lenses. He gets his glasses. Page 71, we're told, impatient for progress in his spare time, Nathaniel devoured the books in the library case. We're told again about one of his qualities. It's not a virtue. Impatience. He is impatient. Okay? Ms. Lutyens tells him, patience is the prime virtue. If you hurry, you will fail. Well, the book began with what? Him summoning Bartimaeus around the age of 8, showing he's impatient. Okay? Next chapter, we pick up with Bartimaeus again, and Bartimaeus shows back up to Nathaniel, and he says, have you found what I ordered you to get? He says, yes, page 78, Amulet of Samarkand. It was Simon Lovelace's. Now it's yours. Soon it will be Simon Lovelace's again. Take it, enjoy the consequences. I was asking about this pentacle you've drawn here. What are these runes, this extra line? So Bartimaeus is summoned into the pentacle. He's like, it's a little different than before. There's another line, and there's some runes. What are they? Adelbrand's pentacle. Damn in trouble. I made a big show of checking the lines of the star circle, looking for minute breaks or wiggles in the chalk. Ah, you spelled this wrong. No. Pentacle is sound. It binds you still. Okay, so I lied. So, they talk. He finds out he was pursued. Okay. And bottom of page 80, Bartimaeus says, where's your boss? Now, what does he mean by his boss? Who put you up to it? Yeah, who put you up? Not who's your teacher. The moron down there is not your master. Okay. Yeah, who's running the show? The boy left. He turned the amulet over a final time, bent, replaced it in the pot. Also unexpected. Using the stick with the hook, he pushed the pot back through the circle to its original position on the floor. In other words, he puts the amulet in the pot, pushes it out so that Nathaniel can pull it into his. He looks at it and stuff, turns it over. He puts it back in. See, Bartimaeus is thinking, you get the amulet of Samarkand, you can wear that, and that protects you against any magical spell, against the spell of any demon. It just sucks it up. He takes this thing off, which essentially gives him all protection, puts it back in the pot, pushes it back to Bartimaeus. Now what? He says, take it, hide it in the magical repository of the magician Arthur Underwood, concealing it so that he cannot observe it, and achieving this so stealthily that no one, either human or spirit on this plane or any other, shall see you enter or depart. And he's like, wow. Framing your master at this age, you're going to go places. Do we know why he's doing it yet?
No.
No, we've not been told yet. We keep jumping back and forth in time. Okay? You'll be in the clear. Typical magician's trick. You're learning faster than most. No one's going to find it. Really? You think so? Framing another magician. Bottom of page 84. Wasn't unusual. Part and parcel came with the territory. Your own master, it's a little underhanded, you know. Possibly unique in a wizardling of 12. Sure as adults, etc. Sorry, 12, not 8. But it's before he's named. Okay? And so he tells us about magicians, page 85, in the footnote for that chapter, the first footnote. Magicians are the most conniving, jealous, duplicitous group of people on earth, even including lawyers and academics. Stroud was an academic for a while, teacher. They worship power and the wielding thereof, seek every chance they can to undercut the rivals. At a rough guess, about 80% of all summonses have to do with carrying out some skullduggery against a fellow magician, or with defense against the same. By contrast, most confrontations between spirits aren't personal at all, simply because they do not occur of our own free will. That is, when we are in what is called the other place, the place that demons are summoned from, there's no conflict. It's only when we are brought here that we are forced to engage in conflict. At that moment, for instance, I did not dislike Faquarl particularly. Well, actually, that's a lie. I loathed him, but no more than I had before. Anyway, our mutual hatred had taken many centuries and did millennia to build up. Magicians squabble for fun. We demons, really had to work at it. In other words, he's saying, it took us a long time to hate each other. Humans, it's like the drop of a hat. Okay? So, he puts the thing in Underwood's bookcase, essentially. And let's see here. Bottom of 93. So before Nathaniel can send Bartimaeus away, actually not bottom of 93, page 90. Mrs. Underwood calls Nathaniel by his name when Bartimaeus is in the form of a spider. Nathaniel, good. That's a start. Okay. Then on 93, they continue talking, and we're told at the top of 94, Nathaniel wasn't just his official name, it was his real name. The fool had summoned me before consigning his birth name to oblivion, and now I knew it. I had a chance at him now. Things were a bit more even. He knew my name, I knew his. He had 6 years' experience. I had 5,010. That was the kind of odds you could do something with. Okay? So, next chapter. He's having lessons again. Ms. Lutyens, Mr. Purcell. She's talking to him about names. He's getting ready to go to his name day. He's thinking what kind of name he'd want, and he's getting lessons about William Gladstone and Benjamin Disraeli. These are the dates for the real William Gladstone and Benjamin Disraeli, prime ministers of England in the 19th century. Okay? Notice they kind of went back and forth. Benjamin Disraeli was prime minister first, from February of 68 to December of 68. Then Gladstone was elected in December of 68. He was prime minister till 74, February of 74. February of 74, Disraeli gets reelected prime minister. He is prime minister until essentially when he dies, or very close to. And then Gladstone comes back, okay, for 5 years. And then there's somebody in between Gladstone, and he comes back for another 5 months. And then he's unelected or thrown out. And then he comes back for 2 more years before he finally dies. Okay? They are both regarded as huge pillars in the British premiership. All right? Gladstone loved by even modern-day liberals, Disraeli by modern-day conservatives. They were leaders of those two, parties back then. Okay, so Nathaniel talks to Ms. Lutyens, page 98, and says, "So you're a commoner?" She says, "Yes, I'm only a commoner," etc., etc. Okay. Page 101 and following. Nathaniel's invited downstairs to meet some guests of Arthur Underwood's. And he goes down, and we're told, page 101, they don't look the part of magicians. Why? No capes, no beards, etc. Page 101, middle of the page. The magician says, "This is the boy." And the 3 men look at him. One, old, white-haired, florid, that is very red, sun-dried tomato face. Another, a doughy, water-eyed individual in middle age, that's Screwtape. His skin looked cold and clammy like a fish on a slab. The third, much younger, more handsome, slick-back hair, round glasses, xylophone size array of gleaming white teeth. I don't know if you know who he is. Look at a picture of Gavin Newsom, governor of California. Matches this to a T. The guy looks like he walked out of a GQ magazine. He is the perfect image for, central casting for a governor or, I'm sure, president. I'm sure he's already planning that. Okay? So, they're talking about him, and the old man says, "Slow is he," about Nathaniel. The fat man, Screwtape, "Do you beat him?" Rarely. Unwise. The young man, "How old are you, boy?" 10, sir. So he's 10 when he conjures Bartimaeus. 11 and Still a couple of years before would be any use to you, Underwood. Costs a fortune. Greedy, is he? Yes, some boys are. Nathaniel, I'm not greedy. All right, go back to your room. And one of the boys says, one of the men, the young man, says, you got a tongue in your head, I see. Not afraid of your elders. Why? Why does he say that? Nathaniel, go ahead.
Instigating?
Yeah, well, partly. But Nathaniel heard the older man say, greedy is he? Some boys are. And he politely says, I'm not greedy, sir. Was he asked for his opinion? No, he wasn't. So, you don't know when to shut up, do you, kid? Nathaniel says nothing. Perhaps you don't think we're your betters. Now he's needling him. He's probing. He's trying to get a response. The man spoke lightly, but sharpness in his voice was clear. In other words, this is designed to do something. The young man misinterpreted his silence. Nathaniel doesn't say anything. Why? He's been taught enough to keep your mouth shut. He thinks he's too good to talk to us all at all now. So he takes that silence and he does what? He interprets it and puts a negative spin on it. Underwood, run on, boy. Hold on, Underwood. Let's see what you've taught this whippet of yours. So now we're going to test him. It'll be amusing. Nathaniel glances at his master. He's like, what the hell? How many classified types of spirit arts are there? Nathaniel replies without a pause. Okay. Unclassified? And he goes on. What's the modus operandi of the card? And he answers it. How should one? And he answers it. If you summon a cockatrice, what precautions? He answers it without any problem. Nathaniel was gaining in confidence. In other words, go ahead. Go ahead. Ask me. He had committed simple details such as these to memory long ago. He was pleased to note his unerringly correct answers were exasperating the young man. His success had also stopped the clammy man's snickering. The old magician, kind of like, damn, that's pretty good for a 10-year-old. He noticed his master smiling. Nathaniel thinks, not that I owe any of this to you. All right. What are the 6 words of direction? Any language. That is, in any language. Because he could answer English. He could answer in Latin. He could answer in Greek. He could answer in Coptic. Arthur Underwood. Come on, that's not fair. He can't know that. Why? Because he still hasn't passed the 3 years to read the one bookcase. And yet he's already finished all those other books. Appare mane, ascolta, sedere, pare, ready. And then he gives him in English. He looked into the young magician's eyes as he finished, conscious of his triumph. What's the conscious of his triumph probably imply?
He's acting here.
Yeah, he's got a cocky look in his face. Like, there. Smug. And the others, not loveless. Sholto Pin and the old guy, that's Skylar. Sholto Pin and Skylar, we are told, murmured their approval. That's pretty good. You better keep an eye on this one. His master now wore an unconcealed grin and says, bravo, bravo. Loveless, standards must have dropped. If a backward apprentice can be congratulated for spouting something we all learned at our mother's teats, you're just a sore loser. Not the right thing to say. He barked a word. Nathaniel felt something small and compact land on his shoulders. They clench his hair. They jerk it backward. Lovelace comes close. You cutter snipe. Talks to him. Okay. Perhaps this will teach you the dangers of insolence when you're too weak to fight back. Now get out of my sight. Something sniggers in his ear, kicks him. So Nathaniel moves, looks towards his master for what?
Like you aren't going to do anything?
Exactly. Help? And he doesn't. He walks through, Nathaniel asks Mrs. Underwood, who are these people? She explains. And then what does he do? What he did already, bad enough. How is he going to finish this cake? What's the icing going to be?
Those mites.
He sends the mites downstairs to attack them.
They're a super little demon, right?
Yeah, they're below imps. Yeah. Okay. So he goes upstairs, page 108, 109, 108. He says the 3 words. He smashes the box. The magicians barely had time to look up before the mites were upon them. 109, Simon Lovelace stands there, glasses flashing in the light from the windows. He issues a command. Nathaniel is ripped bodily from Mrs. Luchen's grasp, carried through the air, hung suspended midway between ceiling and floor. He hears Mrs. Luchen shouting, and he hangs, head, arms, legs dangling toward the carpet, his bottom aloft. So he's held up, so his rear is sticking up in the air. An invisible stick struck him on his rump. He yells, wriggles, again and again. Long before the tireless hand ceased its work, Nathaniel stopped kicking. Why? Did he just resign himself to the situation? He hung limply, aware only of the stinging pain and the ignominy of his punishment. The fact that Mrs. Luchen was witness to it made it far more brutal than he could bear. Fervently he wished he were dead. When at last a darkness welled up and began to carry him away, he welcomed it with all his heart. What's the darkness that wells up and carries him away?
Consciousness.
He passes out from pain. Passes out from pain at 10 years old. He's dropped on the floor, but he's already unconscious. And we're told he's confined to his room for a month, other punishments and such. Such solitude, page 110, might have driven him mad had he not discovered a discarded ballpoint pen under his bed. With this and a few sheets of old paper, he managed to while away some of the time with a series of sketches of the world. When the month's isolation comes up, he finds out Mrs. Luchen's has been fired. What does that event set in motion?
Revenge.
Go back to the beginning. Revenge. He's going to get that little SOB. And it's revenge that goes back to the beginning and then kind of rockets to the end. It encapsulates everything in this novel. What motivates Nathaniel? Seemingly revenge. With a touch of something else thrown in as a result of something Simon Lovelace is going to do. Okay? Chapter 13. No title. There's nobody named. Okay? Why? We're still on Nathaniel. So, he pretends, we're told, page 113, a mask of obedience and contrition. It's a mask. That's how we know it's pretending. He's not really obedient. He's not really contrite. He's whiling away his time. He's plotting his revenge. Okay? So skip a bunch.
How much is
A bunch. We're going to skip a bunch because I know we've got a lot to. Pages 126 and 27. Bartimaeus is talking to Nathaniel, and he's just, he's just egging him on. He keeps using his name just to get under his skin. This was fun. I was really rallying him. The loss of his name had made him lose his cool. He was seconds away from another attack. He had the stance and everything. I adopted a similar but defensive pose, like a sumo wrestler. Okay? So, I'm going to skip a whole bunch. Page 132. Nathaniel tells Bartimaeus, I'm going to send you on a mission. But before he does, he pulls out something and he says, you see this? And it's a little tin. He says, that's a tobacco tin. Don't you know smoking kills? Doesn't contain tobacco anymore. It's full of rosemary now. He lifted the lid a fraction. A waft of the hellish scent reached me. Some herbs are very bad for our essence. Rosemary is one of these. In consequence, magicians can't get enough of it. In the Lockwood series, lavender is bad for ghosts. So people plant lavender all around their houses, especially in front of windows. And for doors, they have lavender that grows along the top of the door. Okay? I'd put some honest tobacco in there, Better smoking than that stuff, I'm going to send you on a mission. The moment you've gone, he says, I'm going to cast the spell of indefinite confinement. I'm going to bind you into this tin. The spell won't take effect immediately. Let's see, I'll give you a month. You get a month to do the job. If for any reason I'm not around to cancel this spell, if anything should, happen to me, within a month, you will be drawn into this tin and trapped there until such time as it is opened again. Aladdin's lamp, essentially. How do you like the idea of that? Scheming little mind, don't you? And in case you're tempted to risk the penalty, I'm going to take this tin and I'm going to bind it with bricks and I'm going to throw it into the Thames. In fact, I think what he eventually does, he walks out into the middle of Blackfriars Bridge and drops it into the middle of the Thames. Nobody goes down to the bottom of the Thames underneath the Blackfriars Bridge. Okay? So, what do you say to that? How about you forget about that little silly tin business and just trust me? Trust me. Not a chance. Okay. Part 2. Got to go a lot faster. Nathaniel's thinking, I'm screwed. He knows my name. He knows my name. Bartimaeus of Uruk. Where's Uruk? Ancient Mesopotamia. It's a real place. Sakr al-Jini of Al-Arish. Al-Arish, another real place. He had allowed it to uncover his name. Mrs. Underwood had spoken, etc., etc. The cardinal rule. He's thinking, I'm screwed. Right? So, pages 140, 141, getting ready for his naming day. And Underwood says, use the almanac, gives all official names. And he shows us an awful lot about himself. Because what name does he want? William Gladstone. The greatest magician England has ever had. Okay? Another book, second book, we're going to see, is this quite accurate? No, in fact, I'm going to tell you an inaccuracy. We're going to see William Gladstone come out around London, or we're going to see a part of William Gladstone. Let me put it that way, okay? And we're going to see some of William Gladstone's things, his staff, for example, okay? They become very important. So he says, William Gladstone. Okay, put this in our world. Assume we had a similar situation, a similar kind of thing. You become the age of 12, and you get to choose a name for yourself. What would the equivalent of William Gladstone be? Let's say in the United States.
George Washington.
George Washington, pretty good one. FDR, Abraham Lincoln, Teddy Roosevelt. Not many would choose Jimmy Carter, Lyndon Johnson, Harrison, I think Harrison was the one who died after 3 months. Got the flu from his inauguration march and died 3 months because he wouldn't wear a heavy overcoat. Damn fool. So you pick one of those names. Most people would say, really? Okay. So he suggests that. No, that one won't work. Okay. There are some names, page 141, Too great, too recent to touch. No one would dare it. He just did. He just did, by even suggesting it kind of in private. It would be the height of arrogance to assume his mantle. Sorry, didn't think. Yes, he did. What did he reveal there?
That he wants to be strong.
Aspirations.
Wants to be strong, aspirations. It's the height of arrogance, Underwood says. What is arrogance? It's like pride on steroids. He's saying, oh, I can do it. I can wear that mantle. He's conjuring Bartimaeus at the age of 10. We're going to be told, where are you told in this one? Yeah, we are. I think it's this one. Might be in the next one. You know, what he's doing here at the age of 10, bless you, that's pretty amazing, okay? So, he gets his name. What's his name?
That's boring.
Blah, blah, blah.
That's boring.
It's about as boring as you can get. Joe Blow. John Smith. It's pretty much what it is, okay? Page 143. Notice he thanks him. John now thanks him. And Underwood, we're told, takes on a complacent tone. Why? The period of tutorship is almost over. Now, he's still only 12. He will live with Underwood for several more years. But what Underwood did from age 6 to 12, it was to get him ready for this. Okay? In a few years, we'll have you in a worthy job. Undersecretary in one of the lesser ministries. Won't be glamorous. It will suit your modest capabilities. Not every magician can aspire to become an important minister like me, John. He's nobody. He is a literal nobody. But that shouldn't stop you making a contribution of your own, however meager. In the meantime, as my apprentice, you will be able to assist me in trivial conjurations. Why trivial conjurations? Underwood would never say this, but that's all he's able to do. When he finds out that Nathaniel, John, summoned Bartimaeus, he's like, there's no way. There's no way he could summon that kind of a genie. Which way? I wouldn't even. Well, that's the problem. He wouldn't even dare. Okay? So, his training goes on. We're going to skip a bunch. Chapter 16. Bartimaeus. We're going back to when Nathaniel sends him on his mission. Okay? So Bartimaeus just leaves the window. 146, 47. 147. Freedom is an illusion. It always comes at a price. Right? What's the phrase we hear today?
Freedom is free.
Freedom is never free. What's the price? Always paid. It's not by us here. It's always paid by those out there who are, quote unquote, purchasing freedom for us. The way the character Aragorn in The Lord of the Rings puts it is somebody has to stand sentinel so that other people don't. Okay? It's an illusion. It always comes at a price. This is Bartimaeus saying this. Why? Because this idea of freedom, it's going to become important in the next two books. Specifically, freedom for spirits. Freedom for Bartimaeus. So, he takes on a form. He goes off to do what he's supposed to do. Page 151. We hear talk about Rupert Devereux prime minister. Okay. Who's doing the talking? A low-level imp that Bartimaeus is essentially torturing for information. Okay. How do we know he's being tortured for information? Look at page 151. A small piece of advice. That is, Bartimaeus says, I want some advice, or I'm giving you some advice. Generally speaking, it isn't wise to be rude to someone bigger than you, especially when you're just been trapped under a boulder. Now, think of that and go back in time. Who else could that apply to? Little piece of advice here. Isn't smart to smart off to a magician who is more powerful than you are. Exactly. Nathaniel could have used some of that advice. You can stick your advice up in their asterisks. These polite asterisks replace a short censored episode characterized by bad language and some sadly necessary violence. When we pick up the story again, everything is as before except that I am perspiring slightly and the contrite imp is the model of cooperation. I'll ask again. Who's Rupert Devereux? He's the British Prime Minister, oh, most bounteous and merciful one. Something's happened to make him now realize that Bartimaeus is now bounteous and merciful. Okay? They talk about Schuyler. So they've talked about Devereux, Lovelace, Schuyler. They're all in cahoots about something. Okay? We talk about Sholto Pen and Pen's accoutrements. That is the place you can go to get clothing or other accoutrements. What are accoutrements? Things you need for your job. We would say, if you were a manager in some kind of business, like Staples, where you can get staples or stapler guns or other kinds of things that go along with the job. Well, magicians, what have we already been told about some at least? They like to wear what? Capes. They've not seen The Incredibles. Okay? You don't wear capes, if you're a superhero. Okay? Capes, canes, magical objects. Sholto Pen can get those for you. All those kinds of things. Okay? So where is he? Chapter 17. Pen's accoutrements was the sort of shop that only the very rich or bring. He goes to Pen's accoutrements. Cut to the chase. What happens at Pen's accoutrements? Because we don't have time to discuss it.
He gets trapped.
He gets trapped. Pen's accoutrements gets destroyed for the most part. Okay? But he gets trapped. Who's he get trapped by / caught by? Jabbar, okay. Ultimately, he gets controlled by whom? Jessica Whitwell. He comes under her powers. What does she do? Okay. I mean, what does she do? What does her employ? She works for the government. How?
It's torture.
No, I mean, she's not, Minister of Torture. She's like CIA, NSA, DA, one of the alphabet soup, things. Okay? What about Henry Duval? Chief of Police. Chief of Police here is those federal. It's like the secret police. Who I shouldn't talk about that. Who is our United States version of the quote-unquote secret police? But they're not secret, right? FBI. So he's kind of like FBI. So FBI, CIA, president, advisor of sorts. Okay? But he's more advisor for him because he was his master. We're going to find out. Yeah. Talk about that later. Okay? So, let's see here. So we hear allusions to, as Nathaniel is being driven by the Underwoods to this party. Okay? What's the party?
State of the church.
Yeah, it's kind of like a state affair. It's like when the president throws a state dinner for a visiting head of state. Okay? So the prime minister is going to be there. A bunch of people are going to be there. This is going to be Nathaniel's first time to do what? Rub shoulders with the hoity-toity. Right? Of course, he's not going to rub any shoulders because he's a nobody. More importantly, he's not going to rub any shoulders because Underwood's a nobody. Okay? So they get there, and Underwood goes off to start talking to people. And what are Nathaniel and Martha left to do? Talk by themselves and, oh, look how Mrs. So-and-so is dressed. Ooh, isn't it? And he's like, man, this sucks. You know, I'd rather be home torturing Bartimaeus. So, probably. Okay? So, as they drive, what does the conversation turn to? What do we start to hear for the first time about? Is everything in London going wonderfully well? What's not? Kind of like there's a resistance. Who's in it? Commoners. Okay. What are they doing? Stealing stuff. They're breaking in and stealing. What else are they doing? There's vandalism. There's terrorism. Okay. So, Arthur says, if they'd only give me a little more power, I could do some things about these problems. Page 181 and following, we get some descriptions of some of the monuments of London and what they describe. For example, fallen heroes of the Great War, then a few monolithic sculptures representing ideal virtues, patriotism, respect for authority, the dutiful wife. And when we're told that these are monolithic sculptures, what's that meant to imply? These are people. These are personifications of patriotism. What do you think this sculpture looks like? A soldier? What about respect for authority? Maybe a child looking up with adoring eyes to a teacher or to a government minister. What about the dutiful wife? I'm not even going to touch that one. I'll let you women touch that one, okay? So, what else? Just before chapter 19, Nathaniel notices people, as he's driving in the limo, he notices people out on the sidewalks. Silent onlookers. Their mood seemed sullen, even hostile. As best he could judge, their mood seemed sullen, even hostile. Most of the faces were thin and drawn. Why? They're poor. Keep going. They're hungry. They don't have enough food. Large men in gray uniforms stood casually further off, keeping an eye on the crowds. Who's that? That's the secret police. Notice, they're standing a way off. Why? There's nothing happening yet. But they're there.
Can they be seen?
Yes. Keeping an eye on the crowds. Everyone, policemen, commoners alike, they look cold. Sitting by himself in the insulated comfort of the car, a glow of self-satisfaction began to steal over Nathaniel. He sees these people who are hungry with pinched, drawn faces, and he suddenly feels the warm fuzzies inside. Why?
Because they're commoners.
Sucks to be them. It's nice to be me. He was part of things now. He was an insider on his way to Parliament. What's it like to be an insider? I bet everyone in this room has at one point or another, you've been part of the inside group or clique. That's what it's talking about. You're one of the popular ones. You're one of the powerful ones. Okay? Yes, so was I. Parliament at last. He was important, set apart from the rest, and it felt good. the first time in his life, he knew the lazy exhilaration of easy power. Power. That's it. That's what it's all about for Nathaniel. Power. Because with power, you can do what? Control others. You can control others. You can make others do what you want them to do. All right? Let's see here. So they go into the thing, and Nathaniel, Mrs. Underwood starts pointing out who people are. Okay, we're going to skip a bunch. We over here talk. We see the elemental sphere explode. Nathaniel says, "I saw somebody." Okay. Page 200. What did you see? Underwood asked him. I saw the boy on the terrace. He was just there, just before he threw it. Blue orb in his hand, etc., etc. Okay? So, because he's seen that, because he reports that, notice now a few people start to take a little notice of him. Okay?
I have a question.
Yes.
So on 197, he mentions the men in a gray jacket and how they got on the brows, and then are they some type of is that important to notice? Because he says something about
Where specifically?
Middle.
Middle page. The half dazed by his impact with the door. Nathaniel's. Yes. Okay. So what's your question again?
Is that important? Is that kind of leading into something that's going to be mentioned more in other books? Because I was it's weird that they would mention growls and then.
Well, they're called.
Are they the night police? Is that what they are?
Yes, and they're called. They're not werewolves. Are they werewolves?
Because that's what I was thinking. Are they shifters of some sort?
It's something wolves. It might. No. Might just be night wolves. Yeah, there is it's ambiguous.
Because I didn't mention it in that book, I don't think.
No, in the next book, there's more discussion about them. And it is kind of ambiguous as to, are they shapeshifters of some sort? I don't think they are. Yes?
The book also mentioned a war. Is that important for the series as a whole?
Yes. Yeah, there's an ongoing war between Britain and Prague. Prague's the capital of the Czech Republic, current Czech Republic. Okay? And so we will see in...
So are they in London or are they?
They're in London. In book 2, Nathaniel will go to Prague. Okay, which I always loved that book because my daughter taught English in Prague for 4 months, and my family flew over Christmas of 2016, and we were there for 10 days, 15 days. And Prague's just the most amazing place. I mean, most of it is 600 years old. Okay. And it was virtually untouched by World War II. It's one of the few cities in Central Europe that wasn't, bombed to bits. Okay?
You know why, right? I mean, Bartimaeus built the wall.
Yeah, Bartimaeus. I mean, all the demons were protected. I mean, they say all throughout the magicians in Prague are more powerful than those in England. Okay, so skip a bunch. They talk about youths being reported at the other crimes. So they know, the commoners that are in the resistance. And, for example, the individual who threw this elemental sphere, this blue orb thing, wasn't an old person. Wasn't somebody my age. Wasn't somebody in their 30s. It was somebody in their teens, very early 20s. Okay? We see Bartimaeus in his orb in what chapter is this? 21. Okay. We see Jessica Whitwell asking some questions. In the end of that chapter, he's in a mournful orb, and What happens to him at the end of the chapter?
He was being summoned, or so he thought.
He's being summoned, so he has to return. But he's in a mournful orb, which means
You can't.
he can't. What's the other interesting thing about the mournful orb?
It shrinks.
He keeps shrinking, so he has to keep changing form. Every time he changes form, it's painful. Okay? But he can't keep shrinking down. But what can't he shrink to? Nothing. So this thing will eventually kill him. Okay? We're going to skip a bunch. He does escape. How does he escape? Qual and Jabor come to save him. He gets away from. I'm skipping a whole lot. He gets away from them. Chapter 25. He says, and Jabor too. How nice of you both to come. Why are they there? Simon Lovelace sends them. He wants the amulet back. Why? Because it figures up in the very end of the novel. It's pretty important to him. Okay? He's got to get it back. So, in releasing, in freeing Bartimaeus from Jessica Whitwell, what is Simon Lovelace doing?
Helping himself.
Helping himself. What else?
Traitor.
Bingo. He's going against the government. What would this be like? It'd be like breaking somebody out of, I don't know, one of the federal pens where they keep breaking somebody out of Gitmo. High value targets and such. Okay? So, skipping a bunch. He gets out of there and he makes his way back to Nathaniel. Let's see here. Nathaniel's using his scrying glass, trying to figure out where Bartimaeus is. And he's also using his scrying glass, pages 265 and following, to keep tabs on his master. Why does he attempt that? You know, the scrying glass, piece of silver that's polished, that he has an imp in, and he can send the imp to go places. Okay? Why does he send the imp down to keep an eye on his master? Or why does he feel he can do that safely? Because he's arrogant. Okay. One possibility. Actually, it's true.
What's he knows his master's not going to notice?
Yeah. He doesn't think his master can notice. And I think probably at this point, what else does he think? What's he going to do to me? Okay. Meanwhile, what is still in Arthur Underwood's study? The amulet is still there. Okay. So, Bartimaeus shows up in page 271, or before Bartimaeus showed up. Who shows up at Arthur Underwood's? Simon Lovelace. Okay. Well, the imp comes back and keeps talking to Nathaniel, who's been a naughty little magician, things like that. Don't lie to me, demon, and he tells him Lovelace is downstairs. Page 274. If Lovelace is here, he'll have stationed a dozen spheres outside. They'll home in on what? On the amulet, he says. And they'll be here any moment. Oh, can it, Nat? You're not in the pentacle now, 274. This is Bartimaeus talking to him. You can't force me to obey each new order. Running off with the amulet will be fatal. Take it from me. How strong is Underwood? What? How strong? What level? Come on. Your one chance is that if Lovelace finds the amulet, he might want to keep the whole thing quiet. So Bartimaeus is trying to get Nathaniel to think kind of logically. Maybe he'll just say, okay, it's a ballsy move. We'll let it go. You don't think he'll Oops. Know ye that I have devotedly carried out my charge. I have spied on Lovelace. I have sought the secrets of the amulet. I have risked all for you, O my master. And the results are, you're an idiot. Bottom of 274. You've no idea what you've done. Amulet is so powerful it's been in government keeping for decades until Lovelace stole it. Had it stolen. His assassin murdered a senior magician for it. Okay, so if he's willing to murder for it, then what?
He's willing to murder again for it.
If you're willing to murder for something, that means nothing's going to stop you. I don't think it's likely he'll worry about killing Underwood. You? We can't just stand here. We got to do something. I'll go watch developments. You be ready to pack. Notice what Bartimaeus is thinking. Let's leave. I'm not running anywhere. Mrs. Underwood. Running's good if your skin needs saving. Go wait. Now, we're going to see in a moment a little episode where Nathaniel's going to be taught a lesson by Simon Lovelace. Okay? What did Mr. Purcell teach him about magicians and their place in society? I had the word up here. Honor is what motivates them. They're noble. They serve. Okay? So, Bartimaeus chapter 28, we see Lovelace come in, say, sorry for the intrusion, my house is yours, etc., etc. Page 278, 279, we get a little background information about Bartimaeus that we've not been told before. He's talking about the raid that Bartimaeus carried out. The jinn who did this goes by the unseemly name of Bartimaeus, middle-ranking jinny of great impudence and small intelligence. Great impudence. Smarts off a lot. Nothing special, any half-wit might have summoned it. Half-wit magician, okay? Underwood, so this thing got your item? He says, yes. Notice, Underwood still doesn't know what he's getting at. Why are you here? They followed Bartimaeus back across London and here. What do you mean here? You lie. 10 minutes ago, it went down your chimney. I would never have guessed it was you, page 280, Arthur. Not that I didn't think you coveted my treasures. I just thought that you lacked the competence to take them. He's just accused him of being what? A bad magician. Incompetent. Okay? And Underwood finally has enough. 281. You pompous upstart. How dare you accuse me of theft? I haven't got your object, blah, 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 blah. Until he's shown that he does have his object. It's right there. Okay? So, Mrs. Underwood brings in tea, etc. And they go to his study. Page 287, Nathaniel forgets his predicament, we're told. Mrs. Underwood is in danger. He doesn't know what Lovelace will do. He doesn't know what's going to happen to Mr. Underwood. So he goes downstairs. Page 288, 289. He thinks of Ms. Lutyens. He thinks Underwood hasn't taken the amulet. He doesn't deserve what's going to happen to him. He could not run. He could not hide. That was the advice of a demon, treacherous and sly. So what does he do? He slowly walks out of his room, and he goes down to the study, and he says, I took it. I took the amulet. It's me you want. 291. They're both looking at him like they've been smacked across the head. It was I. He knows nothing about it. You can leave him alone. Notice how he's speaking about Underwood. Dismiss him. He's unimportant here. Let's talk as equals. 12? And somebody in his 20s? Underwood blinks. It's like, what? What are you gibbering about? You don't know her. Go away. A moment, Arthur. Don't be absurd. This stripling cannot have committed the crime. He would have to bypass my fire axe and raise a jinny of the 14th level. Exactly. The notion is, wait a second. What did Underwood discover that we did not discuss in Nathaniel's room?
The pentacles.
Adelbrand's pentacle. He says, and he had booked the mouth of Ptolemy. I caught him spying in on me in my study. And Nathaniel says what? Okay, he admits he did it. Does he give his motive? I want revenge. No, it's a joke. It was a joke of revenge. Just a trick. Wanted to get back at you for hitting me that time. Okay. So Underwood apologizes, says we've been inconvenienced, we've both been betrayed, do with them as you want. Loveless, bottom of 293. I am almost very impressed. Yes, I have been inconvenienced, last few days have been difficult, etc., etc. Bartimaeus at your age, that's pretty cool. Left me frustrated too, that's rare. I might have dealt quietly with Underwood and left you alone. Might have, not will. Nathaniel, he didn't know anything. You can leave him alone. Leave Mrs. Underwood out. Oh, 294. Lovelace chuckles. Some childish concept of nobility? I guessed as much. The honorable course of action, heroic but stupid. Where did you get that notion from? What notion? Nobility, honor. Not from Underwood. He's just said Underwood has no honor, has no notion of nobility. I robbed you because you wronged me. I wanted to get back at you. That's it. Okay. So, Lovelace disengages himself and says, thank you, Underwood, because Underwood's kind of grabbed him by the arm, and says, I shall administer his punishment shortly. Good, after disposing of you. Disposing doesn't mean after punishment. It means death. What? I'm not stupid, John. It's possible you do not know what this object is, but frankly, I cannot take that chance, and certainly poor Arthur knows. Underwood stretches out a hand, grasps Nathaniel around the neck, and what are we told? Such loyalty from a master to his apprentice. Now, Nathaniel has just showed loyalty to his master. How?
By telling the truth.
It wasn't him. Leave him alone. You see, John, Underwood and I are giving you a final lesson in the art of being a magician. Perhaps with our help you will understand your error in owning up to me today. You believed in the notion of the honorable magician, who takes responsibility for his actions. Mere propaganda. What's propaganda? Literally, a state-controlled speech designed to put forth an idea that is untrue. Okay? For example, here's one, recent politics. NBA, last night, ESPN broadcast a game. The China stuff was part of it, and it included a map of China. Okay? The map it got from China. Guess what it included as part of China? Taiwan. And the South China Sea. It had these dashes. 10 dashes. South China Sea is not part of China. Their territorial waters extend, I think the number is 12 miles off the coast. There's all these little man-made islands in the middle of the South China Sea made by the Chinese that they use to claim that whole area. The United States keeps sending destroyers through there to say, not yours. Mm-hmm. There is freedom of navigation rights for all countries through these areas. Okay? So that's an example of propaganda, putting forth a false idea. So, he says, the idea of the noble magician, mere propaganda. Where did he hear it from? His history teacher, who's paid by the state to teach him history. Such a thing does not exist. There is no honor, no nobility, no justice. Every magician acts only for himself. So what's that do about William Gladstone? He just did it best. He did best working only for himself. Every magician acts only for himself, seizing each opportunity he can. When he's weak, he avoids danger. Look at your master. Which is why second-raters plod away within the system. Arthur knows all about that. How do you think Rupert Devereux himself came to power? His master killed the previous prime minister. In a coup 20 years ago, he inherited the title. That's the truth of it. That's how things are always done. In other words, that's how Gladstone became prime minister. He offed the previous one. When I use the amulet next week, I will be following in a grand tradition dating back to Gladstone. Now, what has he just partially done? Partially. He hasn't given us the full plot, but he's given us part of it. He's going to use the amulet somehow next week to do what? Become prime minister. Okay? Rupert Devereux did it to the previous, his master did it to the previous one. And I'm going to use the amulet next week. The implication is to take that job for me. An image of Mrs. Underwood downstairs in the kitchen. Flash, please. You are weak, boy, just like your master. Underwood, take the boy. Leave me. Showing what he ultimately is. Okay? So, what happens? To skip a lot. Mr. and Mrs. Underwood burned alive in their house. Nathaniel escapes. Bartimaeus escapes. And they go and they live in a derelict old warehouse or library, something like that. And notice, 3:11, Bartimaeus starts to be nice. He offers, would you like a fire? I can warm you up a little bit. It's cold in here. Of course, what is still in the back of Bartimaeus' mind?
3 yeses.
Louder?
The 3 yeses.
The 10.
In Bartimaeus' mind.
Oh.
The 10.
The 10. Old Chokey. 10 full of rosemary. And the charm that if anything happens to Nathaniel, now, not in 30 days' time, we've cut down, like 25, 26, 27 days' time. If anything happens to Nathaniel so that he can't undo the spell, Bartimaeus gets locked in that tin with the rosemary that eats at his essence until somebody finds it and opens it. Okay? So, they talk. What does Nathaniel want? Again, revenge. He's beaten him twice now. Okay? Bartimaeus is like, dude, leave London. Go to Prague. Go to the continent. Run while you can. Okay? He's a renegade, 326, Nathaniel says, about Simon Lovelace. A traitor. Bartimaeus, he's a normal magician. You're the same. Why? How can he say that? Is it a lie or is it true? Or is it somewhere in between? Is it that gray area? Where did he put the amulet? He didn't put it under his mattress. He didn't put it in his desk or his pocket. He put it in his master's case. Bartimaeus was right, framing your master. He didn't intend that necessarily, but that was the effect. Okay? So, Bartimaeus leaves for a while, and I'm going to skip a bit. Nathaniel leaves for a while. He goes off to get a newspaper. Why? He wants to know what's going on in the world. He doesn't have the internet. It's not that kind of world. And what do we find out about the paper boy? Not just a regular paper boy. Part of the resistance. 336 and following. Okay? We get Stanley's name mentioned, and we get Fred's name mentioned. They're looking at Nathaniel. Okay? Nathaniel, like, I don't know what you're talking about, because what does Nathaniel have with them that they want? He has a scrying glass. Notice, they can see this thing. They know what it is. He says it's just something I have. Okay? Let's see here. He sees the girl, page 342. In the instant Nathaniel was allowed, he only caught a glimpse, but it imprinted itself indelibly upon his mind. A girl's face, pale, young, straight, dark hair, whipping around, eyes are wide, startled but not scared, fierce. He heard her cry a command, saw Fred lunge forward, glimpsed something pale and shiny shoot toward him out of the darkness. Nathaniel ducked frantically, cracked the side of his head against the brickwork of the building. Bile rose to his throat. He got ready to throw up. He saw lights before his eyes. He collapsed and passed out. And he hears the voice, "You missed him. He's alive. He's out but alive. I could cut his throat for you, Kitty." Now that kind of sounds like, "Hey, Kitty, would you like me if I cut his throat? Will you like me then?" No, he's only a stupid kid. Let go. So they take off. He goes back to Bartimaeus, tells Bartimaeus what happened, and says, "That paper boy, he knew somehow. He knew what I had." And Bartimaeus is like, that reminds me. I met up with these kids, and they knew I had something when I had the amulet. Which isn't addressed in this novel. But it's going to be addressed in the next novel. These are people, these are commoners, who are developing this ability to see magical objects, to see the aura around them, and to see the aura around magicians, to recognize a magician, not by the clothes, okay? Or to see even jinn, demons, like they did obviously with Bartimaeus. So, Nathaniel says what? What are they going to do? We got to go to that conference. He's a nobody. In fact, he's not even a nobody anymore. He's a nobody with kind of an APB out on him. A nobody with an all-points bulletin. It's not an all points in that Duval Secret Police or Jessica Whitwell spies are looking for him, but everybody that Simon Lovelace could put out looking for him is looking for him. Okay?
Everybody that's going to be at the place he's going to go.
Yeah, exactly. Okay? So, they make their way. They make their way. Who's talking there? To the conference, and I want to pick up before they get there. They're out in the countryside. Where is that chapter? There it is. Which chapter is that? 34. Pages 352 and 53. Because they're away from London, they're away from all the fine houses of London, they're away from the civilization, the metropolis. They get off a train, and it's just country. And there's a house every now and then. And we're told 353. The boy was looking quite pale and unsettled. It's nothing. Just, I'm not used to so much space. I can't see any houses. No houses are good. It means no people, no magicians. It makes me feel strange. It's so quiet. Why? Well, look at your footnote. Even though they have been scraped and shaped by human will, fields do not have magician's stench about them. Throughout history, magicians have been resolutely urban creatures. They flourish in cities, multiplying like plague rats, running along thickly spun threads of gossip and intrigue like fat-bellied spiders. They would love the internet, right? They would love social media. Twitter was made for magicians. The nearest that non-urban societies get to magicians are the shamans of North America and the Asian steppe. But they operate so differently that they almost deserve not to be called magicians at all. But their time is past. Why? Why are the shamans, let's say of North America, medicine men, so to speak, and Asia, far different than magicians?
Kids that use more natural remedies that we see as magic.
Okay, possibly. Why else? What have we heard about magicians? What are they out for? Themselves. First and foremost, power. He's implying, and he implies in other places, Bartimaeus, implies in other places, the shamans weren't for power. The shamans were all about what Tolkien says in the essay is the purpose of what he calls Faerian drama, or fantasy really, shared enrichment. That the shamans kind of wanted to open people's eyes to a deeper reality, a deeper shade of red, a deeper shade of green, to experience life more fully, okay? Whereas the magicians just want what? Power, raw power, okay? So, they keep talking, 354. They get to a village. Don't they realize how vulnerable they are? Nathaniel asks. They've got no defenses. Any magical attack, and they'd be helpless. Not high on their list of priorities. There are other things to worry about. Making a living, for example. He doesn't mean making a living, earning money. He means making a living, making a means to live, putting food on the table. Not that you'll have been taught anything about that. Why? He's the proverbial 1%. He doesn't need to worry about that. Oh no, to be a magician is the greatest calling. Our skills and sacrifices hold the country together, and those fools should be grateful we're there. That's Nathaniel doing what? Parodying propaganda. That's one of the lies of the state. Grateful for people like Lovelace, you mean? That's who the commoner should be grateful for? Notice he frowned, but did not answer. Why? There is no answer. So, they make their way to the house. They see the man with the 7-league boots, the guy who stole the amulet. He's in the next 2 books. Let's see here. They get to Huddleston Hall. What time is it? 8:23. How do they get in?
Oh, they steal that van, the grocer's van.
They steal the grocer's van. So it's like Bartimaeus pretends to be the father, takes a form, and Nathaniel the son. Okay? They put on the white, chef's kind of clothes. They get inside. So Bartimaeus is in the kitchen for a bit, and Nathaniel gets roped into being essentially a server. So he's got a tray of food. Pick up with 384. He sees Amanda Cathcart, because she's the one throwing the party. It's her place. She tells him, you get up, bottom of 383. You get out, serve those in the entrance hall. Prepare the next one's better. Okay? He says, yes, ma'am. Close shave. Top of 384. The guilt that had beset him after the fire had now hardened into a cold acceptance of his situation. Mrs. Underwood had died because he had stolen the amulet. Notice that causality. I killed her, essentially. She had died. Nathaniel had survived. So be it. Now he would destroy Lovelace in his turn. He knew the likelihood was that he would not survive the day. He might get Lovelace, but I'm a goner. What kind of motivation is that? Okay, it is revenge. But I mean, what kind of motivation is it to really do everything when there's that big part of you that says, but I'm a goner? Yeah, I mean, that's going to kind of make you a little limp. It's going to make you not want to achieve as much. If you think, however, I'm going to outlive this and life will be better, that gives you stronger motivation, gives you more power to do what it is you're trying to do. This did not worry him. The odds were stacked in his enemy's favor, but that was the way it should be. He would succeed or die trying. Good old Anglo-Saxon war ethic kind of thing. A certain heroism in this equation appealed to him. It was clear and simple. It blocked out the messiness of his conscience. Why? Because his conscience is saying, Mrs. Underwood is dead and it's your fault. Mr. Underwood is dead and it's your fault. Okay? So, he goes on serving and he meets Rufus Lime. That was wrong. When I said earlier that when Schuyler and Lovelace and the third guy showed up when he first got the beating, when he was 10 years old, the third guy wasn't Sholto Pin. It was Rufus Lime. Rufus Lime, the other old fat guy. Okay? Skip a bunch. So Nathaniel gets caught in the library, essentially. Lovelace is there. And Lovelace leaves Nathaniel's fate to whom? Schuyler. Why?
He was going to try to get him to join him.
Wanted him to join him. Notice, who's really the brains behind this operation? It's Schuyler. It's not Lovelace. What did Lovelace tell Nathaniel about Devereux? Who was the brains behind that operation? His master. It wasn't Devereux. Based upon everything we see of Rupert Devereux in this book, describe him. How is he as a leader?
Fake.
Yeah, he's no good. He's got the looks. He makes for good camera copy. He does not have the abilities. Okay? As we will see in later books. Okay? So, Schuyler, and they talk, and Lovelace leaves, and Nathaniel kills him. 12 years old. First kill. Okay? And Schuyler tells him, bottom of 394, the first time we met, I was impressed. Young, full of knowledge, I thought Simon was harsh on you, even if the affair with the Amites was amusing, enterprising. In other words, damn, that was pretty good on your part. I wouldn't have beat you to death or unconsciousness. So, Nathaniel kills him. He gets down to the room. We're going to skip to the end. 4:11. He meets up with Bartimaeus. Bartimaeus says, so, made your first kill. How's it feel? Notice what the first implies. First of many. How's it feel? Much more manly, I'm sure. Does it help blot out the death of Underwood's wife? So you got Martha Underwood over here, saintly Martha Underwood, and now you've got Schuyler. Does killing him ease your guilt for her? I didn't think so. So they go inside the big room, and page 421. The carpet. Stop. The carpet starts to draw back. I don't understand how this works when people are standing on it, but somehow it does. Okay? They suddenly levitate or something, Anyways, Nathaniel says, won't they look? Oh, that's right. It's because it's under glass. It's under glass. Okay? And Bartimaeus, Nathaniel, 4:21. Won't they look? Bartimaeus, pure greed. They're fixated with the trappings of wealth. Because around this room, it's just, it's the hoi polloi galore. It's everything. Okay? So it draws back, and we see Lovelace and Whitwell do the incantation. Wait, is that right? Another flicker. No. Lovelace blue. 421. Lovelace does the incantation. Okay? Whitwell, 424, I think it was, she does her incantation. That is, she's trying to stop whatever it is that's going to be coming. But it doesn't work. She can call forth beings. Okay? So people tried to start attacking Lovelace, but what happens? Yep. You hit, it just all goes into him. Okay? Not going to hurt him. And we're told 425. Okay. So Lovelace had done his incantation and blew the summoning horn. First thing most of them noticed was that Ifrit, spectacular one, a real curtain raiser. Plenty had been going on. The Ifrit was unlucky, that was all. In her haste to destroy the threat to her master, she got too close to the rift. They're noticing there's like a tear in the air. I don't imagine how this worked, but there was a Doctor Who series of episodes that had that. The split in the air was about 4 meters in length and only visible on the 7th plane. Perhaps a few of the imps glimpsed it, but none of the humans. It wasn't a nice, clean, vertical sort of rip, but diagonal, jagged edges. From my prison, I had watched it form. After the first flicker above the podium, the air had vibrated, distorted wildly, and then the rift gets bigger and change has begun. The lectern, this thing, turns from wood to clay, then to an odd orange metal, then to something that looked like candle wax, and then it starts to become like a Salvador Dali painting. It starts to just kind of bend and flow. Why? Space-time continuum is being altered. Then it happened, 427. The planes close to the rift suddenly went out of sync. The boy whispers, "What's happening?" I don't know. 428. The boy, Nathaniel, that thing, what is it? Because something comes out. Good question. I don't know exactly. 429. Judging by its caution and coming through, it has rarely been summoned before. Which means nobody's been damn stupid enough to summon this thing before. So in order to summon something, not something, you have got to know its name. You've got to be able to find its name in one of those big almanacs. So somebody, at some point in the past, had summoned this thing and written its name down. Probably surprised and angry, its strength is clear enough. Look around. Inside the pentacle, magic is going wrong. Things are beginning to change form. All normal laws are being warped, suspended. The greatest of us always bring the chaos of the other place with them. We've not been told much about the other place, have we? No wonder Lovelace needed the amulet of Samarkand to protect himself. Little footnote. The entity trapped inside the amulet had to be at least as powerful as this newcomer. So whoever made the amulet had some power. They were able to trap something like this thing that warps space and time into the amulet in order to withstand its force. Even as a long-suffering genie, I still had a begrudging admiration for the ancient Asian people who had managed to capture and compress it. Okay? The chaos of the other place. Now we're going to get told more about the other place in the second two books, especially in the final book, the Gate of Ptolemy's Gate. But one thing I can say about it now is in the other place there are no distinctions. So what do I mean by that? What is a distinction?
Magicians and commoners.
No, because there are no magicians or commoners in the other place.
The distinction between them, a hierarchy.
Kind of. Okay, there is still a hierarchy because in the other place, Marids are greater, more powerful than Afrits, which are greater, more powerful than Jinn, all the way down. And the things that are higher Marids are higher, more powerful than them. So what else?
They don't have to take a form.
Keep going.
They can be like an aura. They can be. There is no. They don't have to take an embodiment.
Exactly. There's no form. They are at once everywhere. So, in the other place, the reason he says it's chaos, it has no order. Things move in and out. No distinction means there's no delineation. Okay? So, this thing, when it's coming through, it's bringing some of that chaos here. That means what? Everything we experience through delineation of some sort. I look at individuals, I see forms. You know, I look at Haley. Haley's not part of that desk. It'd be pretty weird if she did this and we all saw her fingers go through the desk and come out the underside, because I'd be running. I'd be the first one and you guys would not catch me, even though I'm 57. I'd beat you all up, okay? That's what's happening. So I don't think only Nathaniel's thinking, this is weird. Everybody else is going, shouldn't have called him, okay? Nathaniel, bottom of 429. Lovelace can't have, Bartimaeus, Lovelace can't have summoned this on his own. He must have had help. I don't just mean that old scarecrow you killed or clamming one at the door. Someone with real power must have had a hand. This being was greater by far than all the various Marids, Afrits, and Jinn that magicians normally summon. A strong magician can summon an Afrit on his own. Most Marids require 2. I think this one took at least 4. So there had to be 4 people in the room who did the summoning charm, even though Lovelace was the only one to blow the horn. Okay? So the ripples emanate from the rift, and what happens as they get closer and closer to various people? Well, yeah, strange things start to happen to them. The eyes, nose moves over here, and eyes go up here. Okay? We're going to see this kind of thing again in one of the other books. So, Bartimaeus says 4:30. Nathaniel, yes. If we get out of this stricture, that is the binding that they're in, do you know what we have to do? Notice, do you know what needs to be done? He's asking, do you know the spell? Do you know the charm? How can we get out? He doesn't say, yes, I can do this. Don't bother. If we escape, what must we do? I'll tell you, we need to accomplish 2 things. 1, we got to get the amulet. That's your job. Doesn't sound too easy, right? Why? Because I can't touch the amulet now that he's wearing it. It's absorbing everything magical, and obviously, I'll try to distract him while you get close. That's kind. Bartimaeus says, I'll distract him. You get close. Second thing, we have to reverse the summons. That's your job. So I get the amulet in. Wait. Yes, I'll help by stealing the summoning horn from Lovelace. It needs to be broken if we're to do the job. But you'll have to round up some of the other magicians to speak the dismissal spell. Some of the stronger ones are bound to know enough, providing they're still conscious. Don't worry, you won't have to do it yourself. Yes, he will. And he does, at 12 years old. He does a spell that a lot of the other magicians, all, don't know. Jessica Whitwell does. It's pretty clear. Okay? So, they get out of their stricture, and How does he get the amulet? What does Bartimaeus do to distract
Turn into his partner, Loveless's partner, whatever her name was.
Amanda Cathcart? And what does Lovelace do? Or let me put it this way. What does Lovelace betray about himself? He shows us exactly what he meant back at Underwood's house when he told them the reality about magicians. What's the reality about magicians? Who do they think about?
Themselves.
What happens to poor Amanda when she starts going all weird because of the Simon, Simon, Simon? He's like, stay away, witch. Better you than me. He shows that he doesn't really love her, right? What's he love? Himself, okay? So, what does Bartimaeus do? He pretends to be Amanda. He takes on her form, okay? Distracts him. Where is it? Jabor is there. I'm skipping Jabor. Ramuthra, that's his name. Ramuthra. 441. Stay back. Get away. Tears well in Amanda's eyes. How could you do this, Simon? Am I to die too? I'm sorry. Sorry. Had to be. No, you promised me so much. Sideways, Nathaniel gets closer and closer. Lovelace's confusion turned to anger. Get away from me, woman, or I'll call on the demon to tear you to shreds. It's almost upon you. She doesn't move. She seemed past carrying. How could you use me? You have no honor. Well, duh. Amanda, I'm warning you. Nathaniel jumps. He gets the amulet. Lovelace gives a cry. And, oops, not Amanda. Okay? So, we've got one thing. Right? Got the amulet now. Lovelace's face froze. He turned to Amanda Cathcart. As he watched, her features slowly altered. 443. Smile of triumphant wickedness spread across her face from ear to ear. Imagine swimsuit model turning into this. One of her arms snaked out, plucking the summoning horn from Lovelace's slackening grip, snatched it away. So now they have the horn, they have the amulet. What's the third thing needed? The spell. And it's not like there's a spell book lying around in the room. Okay? So, Bartimaeus says, top of 445. We've got to try. Come on. Neither of us knows the incantation. Footnote. I have a clue. Words of command are magicians' business. That is what they are good at. Jinn can't speak them. Crabbed old master magicians know an incantation for every eventuality. Except for all the ones who don't in that room. Speak for yourself. I know it. You sure? Possibility hadn't occurred to you, had it? Yes, I've learned it. You could ask for help? I don't think so. Notice, Bartimaeus thinks it's what in Nathaniel motivating him to say this? It's pride. And now's not the time for pride, kid. Because what happens if he mispronounces a word? Content versus content. Bzz, they're gone. So, 446, there's all these voices clamoring out. This was his moment, the moment when 1,000 insults, deprivation would be cast aside and forgotten. He knew the incantation. He'd learned it long ago. He would speak it, and everyone would see that he could not be overlooked again. This is the narrator reaching down into Nathaniel's mind, telling us all this. He's going to shine. He had been underestimated. Underwood thought him an imbecile, a fool, etc., etc. Now was the moment when everything was in his hands. The outcry of his wounded pride almost overwhelmed him. And what happens? He thinks of Mrs. Underwood. He thinks of the garden, Mrs. Lutyens. His love had counted for nothing. middle of 447. Tears ran down his cheeks. And he thinks, patience, Nathaniel, patience. What did Mrs. Lucian say was his prime flaw? He was impatient. If he's impatient now, they all die. Patience. He breathes in slowly, lets it out. He remembers the garden, and in that memory of the garden, his mind becomes like a garden, and it blooms, and he remembers the incantation. He says the word at the spell at the end of the 15th syllable. He split the summoning horn in two across his knee. Ivory cracked, the words rang out, Remuthra stops dead, shimmering ripple stopped, and it's back to normal. With the exception that most of the people in the room are, what's the word, not incontinent, incapacitated. Probably incontinent too. I bet an awful lot of them. Absolute silence in the hall. Crowd of magicians, one or two bruised and battered imps, remained quite still. One thing moved. He gets up and he limps across the room. He goes to where Rupert Devereux is sprawled on the ground. He takes the amulet off and he puts it in his lap. Why? He didn't want to be overlooked anymore, we were told. That's what he was thinking. Why does he do this? Bartimaeus doesn't know. Bartimaeus says, typical of him. This was his big chance. He seized it in the most theatrical fashion possible. Honor? Bartimaeus doesn't think that. With all eyes on him, he hobbled across the ruined auditorium like a wounded bird, frail as you like, straight for the center of power. What was he going to do? No one knew. Notice, no one dared to guess. I saw the Prime Minister flinch. Flinch, he pulls back. Like, what's this kid going to do to me? And then in the climactic moment of this little charade, all was revealed. The legendary amulet of Samarkand, held up high. So before he puts it in his hand, he kind of does this. And kneels, almost. Handed back to the bosom of the government. The kid even remembered to bow his head deferentially. What a performance. In fact, this instinctive pandering to the crowd suggested to me the boy was destined for greatness. He knew how to work an audience. It's one thing people say, for example, say what you want about Trump. The guy knows how to work a rally. There's only a few examples of people in history who do like that, and they're kind of scary if you look back to history. Okay? Hillary Clinton could never get more than 500-600 people. Bill Clinton could do that, but not 20, 30, 40,000. Obama got 20,000, but he didn't have them roaring and yelling. And if Trump wanted to go all Hitler, he could. I seriously think. Okay? Wherever the Prime Minister and his senior colleagues went, my master went too. So notice what happens after this performance. He's no longer nobody, right? He's now risen. So we see, since his master is dead, where does he go to live?
Well,
The head of intelligence. That's scary as all get out. Okay? What else? They talk back and forth before Bartimaeus leaves. Where do I want to pick up? Since we only have 10 minutes. 457. Bartimaeus is talking, says, government's keeping this all quiet. Where are the photographers? Where are the newspapermen? I'd have expected you on the front page of the Times. Nah, they're keeping it quiet for security reasons. That's what they told me. No, it's for reasons of not wanting to look stupid. 12-year-old saves government. Yeah, really, how's that going to look? Okay? So, they keep talking. We find out, Loveless, Skylar, Lime, dead. Lime's gone. Red-bearded magician guy, he's somewhere. Sholto Pins in on it too, but I don't know how. Okay. So, Bartimaeus, top of the next page. You said you would revenge yourself on Loveless. You did. Maybe that takes away a little of your pain. I hope so. Wouldn't know. You also promised if I help you against Loveless, you'd set me free. Not just destroy the 10. Set me free. You would send me back. Well, help's been dutifully given. Saved your life several times over. Loveless is dead. You're better off. Blah, blah, blah. You did help me. You did save me. Yeah. I'm grateful. Hey, but you still know my name. You know my birth name. What's Nathaniel thinking? I send you back. Somebody else can summon you. And you can tell them my real name. That puts me in danger. Bartimaeus, true. I know your name, you know mine. You can summon me. I can damage you. Makes us even. While I'm in the other place, who am I going to tell? You should want me to go back there. If we're both lucky, I won't even be summoned again during your lifetime. However, I promise I won't reveal your real name. You want it official? How about this? Should I break this vow, may I be trampled into the sound by 1,000 camel women. Okay? You could do lots of things, Bartimaeus says. That's your trouble. You're too clever for your own good. A lot has happened because you're too clever to let things lie. You wanted revenge, you summoned a noble genie. You stole the amulet, you let others pay the price. You did what you wanted, I helped because I had to. You did what you wanted. I helped because I had to. I didn't want to. There's going to be a twist in that in the next couple novels. We're going to see a development of this relationship. And no doubt with your cleverness, you could devise some new bond for me in time. But right now, quickly enough to stop me telling you, Master, right now about you, the amulet, and me. Dismiss me, John. John, I've done enough. I'm tired, and so are you. Why does he call him John?
Sure, he's not going to say Z.
Because that's his official name. Okay? So, I'm not tired. There's a lot I want. Yeah, I know. So, he draws a simple pentacle, 2 circles. He says, it's done, get in. So that cancels Adelbrand's. Yep. Breaks the bond of perpetual. Old Chokey's done with. Yep. All right. One more thing. 461. If you were going to summon someone else soon, if you're looking for another Jenny, call for Quarrel. He's a good worker. Put him to something constructive, like draining a lake with a sieve, or counting grains of sand on a beach. He'd be good at that. Look, you want me to go or not? Yes, I do, very much. Well then, Nathaniel, one last thing. Calling him Nathaniel, you're getting his attention. What? For a magician, you've got potential. That is, you could go far. And I don't mean the way you think I mean. See, that's what Nathaniel hears, the way I just said it. You could go far. What's he mean? For a magician, you've got potential.
You have power.
That's the way Nathaniel hears it. What's the way Bartimaeus wants him to hear it?
Well, no, I wasn't thinking power as in like you can become powerful like a hierarchy. You have, like in the beginning, he mentioned that the kid was strong. He had power in him.
He means you can be different. You don't have to be like other magicians. You have potential to be what are magicians not, according to Lovelace. Not the best representative. Good. Okay? You've got more initiative than most of them. Why? What's that mean? He has initiative. He does things himself. What do most magicians do? They make their demons do it. Okay? But they'll crush it out of you if you're not careful. You've got a conscience too. Another thing which is rare and easily lost. This is a demon saying this. Okay? What did Lovelace tells him in one of his first lessons, what do demons do? They're evil, they're wicked, and they lie. Guard it. Guard your conscience, is what he's saying. That's all. I'd beware of your new master also, if I were you. Okay? You all right? Ready? Okay. And he gets dismissed. Why is he warning him about his new master?
She doesn't what he needs.
Well, she hasn't done anything yet. What's her job? Intelligence. This is like the public police. These are the people who disappear you. Okay? These are the people who do the black ops. They do the renditions so that you end up in a place in Morocco, never to be seen again. Okay? That's what he's saying. Don't trust your new boss. What else does he mean by that, though? It's part of you're different, you have potential, you have a conscience. Watch your back.
Don't become like her.
Don't become like her. Don't become like Rupert Devereux, because he's still prime minister, right? Is he good?
Nope.
What did Lovelace tell us about him?
He's cute.
He got his job by his master killing the previous prime minister and such. Okay. Read as much as you can for next Thursday of the next one. I can't say anything else. Pardon?
Yeah.
Probably not. There's too much. There's too much to try to do a quiz over.